fellow. Things that are not on her bio. She just told me, I knew she played softball all 4 years, but in the first year she played softball, basketball, and ran track.
No, I played volleyball.
Volleyball.
I don't run anywhere. So.
You haven't run anywhere, right? She is an entrepreneur extraordinaire, and you can see from her bio what she has done. So, get started. So, help me welcome Jenny back to campus.
Thank you. Thought I would just check that the mic is on. It sounds like it is. Yay, for technology. Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. I'm always excited to come back here. I will say that was a big goal of mine to be able to speak at DePauw. As a management fellow, I always admired the folks I listened to when I was awake and not returning from spring break right away. So I just had that as a big goal, and it's always nice to come back. I really appreciate Management Fellows being a great host. I appreciate all of you being here, and thank you for that nice introduction, Professor Lemon, wherever you are. So. I wanted to start just as a whole. Professor Lemon stole my thunder just a little bit because I was going to start by saying that my claim to fame is that I went to school with Brad Stevens. And my basketball career and coaching career were ever so slightly less successful than his. So I decided to focus on a few other things in my career, and entrepreneurship being one of those I was lucky enough to fall into. But really, in being here today, I wanted to take the opportunity to share obviously a little bit about LeadJen as a business and what we do. But I feel like the journey that I've taken since being out of school for the last 11 years, which is scary to say, you know, I've had a lot of lessons learned through that process, and I think there's so many things that I want to share and want to say, and the biggest thing is that you always want to help others maybe not make the same mistakes that you made, or not have to go through the same hardships and the same challenges. At the same time, that's kind of life, and that's a big part of shaping us into who we are and what we're going to be. So if I could fully control that, I would. I doubt I can, but at the worst or at the least, I can share my story, how I came to be where I am today, and why I'm so passionate about the very thing I said I would never do. And I think that's the biggest shocker looking back. So I thought I'd start with just a little bit of a trip through time in terms of where at DePauw, Gary and Professor Lemon, sorry, did share that I did an internship at the Colts, but while I was at DePauw, I did a few others. So the Colts was my Management Fellows internship, my semester-long internship, but I also worked at a variety of other teams during the summer and during winter term. Some pretty cool jobs at the end of the day. I mean, who wouldn't want to have those nameplates on their resume? It was fun. It was exciting to a degree, but like any internship and any job, you start by filing papers and licking stamps and wondering, what am I going to learn here? And setting up 100-foot inflatables in 90-degree heat and all of that outside the RCA Dome at the time. So there were some pluses and minuses, but obviously I had a pretty focused track while I was in school here. I knew that I wanted to go into sports. I was always in sports. Obviously my first year playing 3 sports, it was something that I felt, how am I ever going to feel a team environment again unless I'm working for a sports franchise? And so I emphasized that heavily, and I will say that upon leaving DePauw, you would think that with all of those great connections, there would be an offer waiting, especially knowing that I had all the recommendations in the world, so it wasn't that I didn't do well in those environments or didn't work hard. Oops, I turned everything off but Skype. Hopefully that won't be a problem. Ivan's online if anyone wanted to know. So that was obviously the focus and where I wanted to go following school. That was my dream job. Leaving school, there were no opportunities with any of those teams. No jobs open at all. So I had all the connections in the world, all the recommendations in the world in that industry. No jobs. It's not something that I had the control to change. So I needed to make some adjustments in what I was looking for. But I wanted to start because a big part of what I want to talk about today is dream jobs. Because I feel like I'm in one right now. I love what I do. I love it. I can't say I love it every moment of every day, because I think that's a little unrealistic in life in general. But I really, really am passionate about what I do. And it is surprising to me that it was the very track I said I would never go down. So I'm curious for everyone to just take a minute and think a little bit about their dream job. A lot of you in here are seniors or juniors, and you have to start thinking that. You have to start picking your major, even if you're an underclassman. So what is that dream job in your mind? How many of you is it to run your own company? Okay. How many of you is it to be like a head of worldwide sales? That's an honest man. I like that. Sales is something to think about, just as an FYI. I'll lecture you on that later. Marketing, head of marketing. Who wants to run marketing? Really passionate about marketing. Finance. Excellent. HR. Any HR folks? Operations or supply chain. Okay. How many of you is your dream job in inside sales? No one. Me either. So when I left school, and my mom was kind enough to remind me of this, what I was very adamant about saying when I was looking for a job. And so I had to open my mind outside of sports, and I felt like I was very open-minded. I just had 2 restrictions. My 2 restrictions were that I wouldn't do inside sales, and I wouldn't work for a high-tech company. Now, one thing about a high-tech company, I think, in all honesty, I was really afraid of that. I assumed high technology would mean I'd have to know something about computer programming or coding. I knew nothing about that. I was lucky I could find the on button on my computer. So in my mind, it was just, how could I contribute there? That can't be an industry that I would do well in. And then the other thing with inside sales is in sports, inside sales is very different. It's very consumer-oriented. So I had done ticket sales, and in ticket sales, literally for the Pacers, and I love the Pacers organization, and I did learn a lot there. I was literally in a trailer behind Market Square Arena with a phone book and a phone, and that was like my worst nightmare of inside sales, right? It's calling from the yellow pages, very little guidance, an afterthought, so much so that we weren't even in the building. And I didn't feel like I was strategically contributing. So those were my criteria: stay out of high tech, and then not go into inside sales. So of course, the first job that I took was in inside sales for a high tech company, and in all honesty, it was mostly a decision that I made out of financial need. It was, and I would encourage you to take a second and think about the job you don't want to do, that you're most afraid of, or think would be the least amount of fun, and challenge yourself a little bit about that. So that first job offer I got in inside sales was a blessing that came to me through Management Fellows. I was one of the few people that wasn't placed yet, and graduation was looming. So I didn't want to be the one person that killed our 100% placement ratio or whatever it was at the time. So that actually was a really compelling offer. It was a lot of money. And so I was thinking, well, this is something I said I would never do. It's a lot of money. I'll just take it, and that way I won't have to live at home, and then I can keep looking. And I really found with inside sales that it really, could be very strategic. It could be very honest. It could be very credible. And I could see tangibly how I was contributing to the bottom line. And I didn't get that until probably 4 or 5 months into that working relationship. So something that I just wanted to share in the context of dream jobs, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it towards the end of this, is what's the realistic path to get there? And thinking about someone like a Brad Stevens, who I think everyone would say is living a dream right now, and something that no doubt he worked very, very hard for. Did he start as a head coach? And if he did he start as a head coach for a 5th grade team, or a high school team or junior high team before he ever had an opportunity to coach at the level he's coaching at? And did he have to pay his dues to get there, to have that dream job? And that's something that I feel like, I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a second, is sorely missing a little bit in our environment. I interview a lot of new college grads. I'd say the most frustrating thing about it is this mindset of, I'm going to have my dream job day one. And I'm not going to have to work for it. I'm not going to have to pay my dues. I'm not going to have to suck it up at times and do something that's not my ideal thing to do. I'm going to put aside my I'm better than this mentality and work and be able to have a vision for what that's contributing in terms of my possibility of attaining my dream job. Ricardo's online too. How cool. So, you know, obviously in the evaluation of that process, it was tough, you know, thinking about the do's and don'ts and weighing that out. I think my biggest fear was, you know, getting on the phone. I mean, it's scary. And cold calling and, you know, bad lists and just all the nightmares that I had built up in my mind. Some I had experienced and just lots of stories that I had heard. But, you know, what I really found is there's a big difference between business to business and business to consumer. B2B, B2C. Does everyone know that difference? Sorry, it's probably me getting too close there. Everyone know that difference, business to consumer, business to business? Okay. So trying to move away from that a little bit. With business to business, there's no such thing as a do not call list. Business to consumer, there is. So in terms of calling and having the right to call, I had to find some things that helped me feel confident in what I was doing. And one of them was I have a right to call. I'm calling people to talk to them about a solution that can impact their professional effectiveness in their environment. It's part of their job to evaluate these things. So I have a right to get in touch with them to talk about it. There's no such thing as a business do not call list that tells me I can't. And my ultimate goal is someday to have like a lot of return calls. I want not to make as many outbound. But I wanted to share, you know, some of those worst nightmares, but also in the context of LeadJen and what we do as a business today. And this is a set of slides that we walk through for some, you know, worldwide marketing executives. So a lot of these slides in terms of the learning, I'm going to try to make it very relevant to you. And also just know that a lot of this content is content that, you know, we're using when we're talking to those worldwide marketing executives and very large software companies and so forth across the nation. So a couple things that we recognized and why I think inside sales became my passion. So a little bit of that track was, you know, I went into this inside sales role at a high-tech company. I found that it could be very strategic, very credible. The whole problem that they were facing is, as a business, I have these enterprise software sales executives. They're expensive. They make six-figure salaries, right? And so to hire someone to manage a sales process that might be a 9 to 12 month sales cycle before they close a deal, and they're probably closing multi-million-dollar deals, it's hard for me to hire someone because I'm not going to know if they stink at what they do until 12 months from now at best. Because they don't even have the possibility to close something if our cycle's 9 months. The first time I can really measure them is from their start date to 9 months. That's not realistic, so I'd have to measure them at 12 months to know if they're even performing. That starts to get really expensive as a business to think about a growth model in the context of six-figure salaries where I'm not going to know if they're doing a good job until 12 months later. So how can I get there faster? I still need to reach the market. Maybe instead I can take the enterprise sales reps I've already invested in. They're already experienced, they're already closing, and instead I can go hire some inside sales folks that can help with the prospecting piece. Because these sales reps, they're managing these large deals, they have 40 people involved in the deal, and they're not going to be focused enough to be consistent with prospecting. And prospecting, at the end of the day, gets us in the door, right? Those are trying to find the people we need to meet with and those companies that are playing a role in our decision process, whether they're the person that's the executive buyer, whether they're the champion, whether they're a coach in the process or an influencer in the process. I need to start getting in front of those people. So inside sales, internal resource, less travel budget. I can see if they're effective quickly, probably within 15 days. This is a way for us to get there. And I was one of the founding members of that team and that philosophy. So with that, The great thing about the company I was at, we sold enterprise marketing software, is we knew a lot about the companies that would buy from us. We knew that we had success selling to financial services companies. We knew that we had success selling to pharma companies. So when we started the process, we didn't make probably the best decisions. We bought these lists. Half of them were irrelevant, half of them were inaccurate. We wasted a lot of time